Hey, what's up, family? I'm here in one of my absolutely favorite spots to hang out. I'm here at Starbucks. Some of y'all recognize the space. You recognize that I'm sitting here at the table and I'm just hanging out. And I wanted to do something kind of impromptu because, I've been thinking a lot about pastors, and that's a huge part of just who I am and what we do as a team and as a company, as a group. Is that I'm always thinking about pastors and thinking about leaders, where they are, where you are, how it feels to be you. One of the things that I was thinking about is, a lot of times my thoughts are prompted by these random questions that seem to just pop in my head. And I know it's the Holy Spirit, but I had this question pop into my head. And it was a question: how do you restart a church? And I haven't had anybody word that question that way, but several of the pastors who have joined our program in the last couple of months, in essence, that's what they were asking. They were like, how do we restart a church? Like, they talked about relaunching and things of that nature, but really what they were saying is, what do we do if our church needs a do-over? We need to start over. Whether that's been because we've been through all kind of turmoil, or it's because, we've gone through a split, or stuff just got hard post 2020, whatever it is, how do we do it? And so I just want to take a quick minute and I want to break this down. Now, I want to be clear. I'm shooting this off the cuff, right? So this was not prepared. I actually had a meeting that got rescheduled. And so I was sitting here and I felt prompted to do this. And so I want to share this video. So if our church lost everything, what will we do next? If our church lost everything and we had nothing left, if everything that we had built and everything that we thought we had was gone, or even if we started really small and we grew down even smaller, like, what will we do? Well, I'm going to frame it into a four-part process. And for those of you who are familiar with my book, The Comeback Plan, then you're going to recognize this process. But I want to give you a little bit more insight into what that looks like modern day. So the comeback plan is built around Nehemiah. Nehemiah goes through this four-part transformation that I see as he helps to not only rebuild the walls and the gates, but rebuild the people, rebuild the culture, rebuild the community, rebuild the economy, rebuild the government. It's all built into this four-part process. So here it is. Part number one is revive. It's revival in the heart of the leader. So if our church lost everything and I had to start over, the first thing I would do is slow down enough to evaluate myself. I love this about Nehemiah. Nehemiah sees all the problems and sees all the issues. But one of the things he does is that he steps back and he says, hey, Lord, we in sin, myself included. Here's where we missed the mark. Here's where we fell short. And not only does he take time to admit and recognize where he falls short, but he spends significant time getting it right. He fasts, he prays, he cries out to God. And I think so often as leaders, when we face tumultuous times, we're so resilient that we just want to get back up and go. And so here's my suggestion to you. If your plant didn't take, or if your church didn't go the way that you believe God intended, go and find you a coach and a mentor who can walk alongside you in this journey and help you see some of the things that maybe you can't see on your own. Truth is, we all have blind spots. All of us have them. We have blind spots. We have things that we don't see that other people can see in us. That's one of the things that I love to do for our pastors who are in our programs is I help to be another set of eyes, seeing things from the outside in. I was speaking to a pastor just a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about all the challenges he was having and some of the things. And I sat back and I told him, I said, bro, you don't realize, like, this other leader has literally given you the whole church. I said, his standard on you is so high because he has put more in your hands than I feel like you've recognized. You think this is temporary, but what you don't see is that God has put this in your hands. And sometimes it takes an outside set of eyes to see that. So you need a coach to help and come in and look at your leadership, to come in and look at where your heart is, where your blind spots are. What are your strengths and weaknesses as a leader? Maybe, some people get into ministry because they're good preachers and teachers, but they're not good pastors and shepherds. Those two things are different. Being able to preach on Sunday is one thing, but being able to care for people throughout the week is something different. And then being able to lead and build a team is also different. So first phase is you start with revival in the heart of the Lord. Phase number two is revision. This is where you catch a new vision for an old place. Nehemiah goes out by night and he walks around the walls and he begins to really assess where things are and where the city is and what's broken and how bad is the situation. And I think this is something you have to do. You have to ask yourself, am I willing to be honest about how things are really going? Because as we get honest about how things are really going, then we can get to real solutions. Because the truth is, if you lie about the symptoms, then you force the doctor to lie about your diagnosis. And so a real diagnosis and real treatment has to begin by dealing with real issues. You can't have an 8-week headache that you've been fighting. You come to the doctor and tell me that, oh, my wrist is hurting. And then I spend all my time treating your wrist, when the thing that's threatening your life is a headache. And so you've got to be willing to be honest. And then after you get honest, here's the good news. You can get clear. Once you're honest, you can get clear. I remember a season of life where my financial status was a challenge, to say the least. Every month I went into one paycheck with a deficit because I'd overdrafted. I knew I had, $5 left in gas. And so I would go to the gas station with that last $5 and fill up the tank. And I knew it was your overdraft, but I also knew that gas would carry me to my next payday. And so one of the things that I kind of sometimes would take up as a strategy is just to not look at it. And sometimes I convince myself that, look, just don't look at it, just leave it. It is what it is. It's too depressing to look at. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at it, you can get honest about it and you can actually fix it. And sometimes you could be that way about your church. There could be so many issues you don't want to sit down long enough to really address them and to deal with. Because one thing leads to another and to another. But here's what I want you to get. When you get an honest look, now you can put together a real plan. Without an honest look, without real data, any plan you put together, it's fair weather. It's going to be exciting at the beginning and then it's going to dip off because it's going to run into those roadblocks that you wouldn't face. It's like trying to go on a road trip, but you know that there are down trees on the road. For the first hour of the trip, everybody in the car is excited about where we're going. But at some point, you're going to come to that place in the road where you've got to deal with what the blockage is. And that's what revision is about. It's about looking honestly at where things are, but then from there saying, okay, I got a plan. Yes, there's a tree in the road, but guess what? Let's go get 2 chainsaws and a forklift and we can get it clear. Or if we get 10 strong men, we can move this tree by hand. Your plan has to fit the reality of where you are. It can't just be something you've seen somebody else do. It can't be something that you got from somebody else. So you've got to get into the honesty of what's really happening in church. And that's a part of revision. So in revision, one of the things that we do is that we help leaders begin to create what we call the vision document. And it's where we help them build a custom document that lists out their vision, that lists out who they are, that lists out where they're headed, that lists out where they're going so that everybody can be on the same page. The third thing, part number 3 is revitalize. This is where Nehemiah comes in and he's getting ready to rebuild the wall. He's got his heart right. He's got the materials, he's got the vision, but now he needs the team. But here is the problem. And I think so many people skip over this with Nehemiah. Here is the problem. The vast majority of people he has to help him build, because he's brought some people with him. But the people who are going to do the bulk of the work are the people who have had to survive the bulk of the struggles. So they're tired, burned out, they're agitated, they're frustrated. And these are the people that Nehemiah has to try and build. And this is the reality of many churches, is that not only are pastors susceptible to burnout, but so are people, teams, people who have been doing it for a long time. Somebody who started leading the Sunday school department when they were in their 20s and 30s, and now here they are in their 60s and 70s. And we're trying to put forth this new vision. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's challenging. And so what Nehemiah does is that he lays out the vision in such a way that every person can find their space. They can find their place in the vision. This is what we call players in our framework. We believe you need playbooks, which is your vision, your systems, or your SOPs. You need players who are the ones who actually get it done. Then you need a performance. But in players, it's about putting the right people in the right places. And that means you've got to take an honest look at who you have and where God can maximize their gifts, their skill set, and their availability. And that means that I can't just put people in places of honor because I like them. Can't have this meritocracy where we just promote people because they're friends with us and they've been around for a long time. It means that we've got to make shifts to put people where they can best serve. That's a huge part of Revitalize, which is why once a month we get on a coaching call and we have pastors send their leaders to us. When they send their leaders to us, we coach those leaders and we help them take the next steps and get clear to understand what it takes to be a leader so that we can help them discern where they fit. And then last but not least is number 4 is rebuild. And this is the part that most gurus and consultants jump straight to it. As you can see, we take a different approach. But rebuilding is where we actually go out and do the thing, where we go and reintroduce ourselves to the community. We relaunch the church. We put everything back out there. We come out with all the new things. If we need a new website, we come out with a new website. We come out with a new logo. We come out with a new mission and vision. Come out with new outreach. We come out with, better defined ministries and relaunch small groups and all these different things. But that rebuilding process is really about taking all the things that happened in the first three phases and then pulling them forward. And so for us, even at the time of this video, on Easter Sunday, we have about 37 churches that are relaunching. And these are churches all across the spectrum. There's one church in the Northeast that their attendance was down to about 7 people. And when the pastor joined our program, he said, I'm just letting you know, this is our last ditch effort. If this doesn't work, we're shutting it down. And they're relaunching on Sunday. But even for the past couple of weeks, I've seen a new energy and a new passion that seems to be rising up in the pastor and his wife as they've been building. There's another church in the north that we've been working in. They came in about 8 people, church going through a lot of transition, a lot of people who have left, a lot of people who have walked away. But as we've been building towards this relaunch on Easter Sunday, we had an event. They had about 50 people come out to this event. And now we're looking forward to Sunday when we're getting ready to relaunch their church. And we've helped them redo the graphics and their website and their signage and everything. And most of all, more than just the church growing and changing, the morale of the leader is completely different. Again, this is another leader who was ready to throw in the towel and has now caught another win. Another church here in the South that had been in online ministry for the last several years. They had been meeting only online with 8 to 15 people joining a Zoom call. We started the process of rebuilding, and I went over to be with them and to do some team training. And just in the team training alone, there were 22 people. 22 people are on the team. And now that those people are on the team, now we're expecting a harvest to come when they launch and relaunch on Easter Sunday. So here's the point that I'm making, is that the relaunch is more than just saying to people, hey, we're doing something different. If a restaurant says grand reopening and you walk in and nothing has changed, guess what? The excitement won't stick. It's only a matter of time before the word gets out that they not grand reopening anything. They just did the same thing over and over again. And so that's what we want to avoid. And the way we avoid that is by actually changing what matters. Dealing with the heart of the leader, because a movement often starts with a man or a woman, starts with a person, starts with somebody who is willing to burn bright for the Lord and be so contagious that everybody else catches on fire. Then it goes to the vision. Are we clear about what we're here to do? Let's make sure every person understands. Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make it plain. Why? So that he that readeth can run. If you want people to run, you got to have the vision clear and plain. And then number 3, revitalize. You need a team. Before Jesus went into his public ministry, he built a team. And so many leaders do that backwards. We lost the church and think the church will bring us a team. But really, it's you build a team and a team will help you build a church. And so if you walk through those 3, now this is how you relaunch a church after everything has fallen apart. So I want to say this to you. If all of it's been lost, I want you to know that all is not lost, that you are not by yourself. You are not alone. If you want to take some serious steps to relaunching, rebuilding what God has put in your heart, then I want you to connect with us. There's a link in the description of this video. I want you to click it. And I want you to plug in and take a look at our programs. We've got 2 programs. We've got a Church Scissors in a Box and our Church Growth Accelerator. Our Church Scissors in a Box is a program where we'll give you all the resources and some group coaching to help you down the way. And our Church Growth Accelerator is where our team becomes your team for 90 days. And we'll come in and build it for you. We'll walk with you and hold your hand through the entire process. Wherever you are, you're not by yourself. Can't wait to get with you soon.